welcome everybody to another glorious episode of the Put on Waivers podcast. I'm your host, Dwayne Douglas, podcasting on the beautiful shores of the Pacific Ocean. About 61 degrees and sunny today. If you follow us on Instagram, you'll see that I had a cool little sunrise that we had today. Look at the sun was on, the sky was on fire. Looked really cool.
Was it sunrise? I don't think it was a sunset.
Sunrise. It was
You're
sunrise.
gonna get the red sky at night, sailor's delight. So red sky at night, sailor's delight. That means you're gonna get a nice storm tomorrow.
Oh, maybe our storm probably will mean like it rains for 15 minutes. Hopefully it rains a little longer than that because we do need to rain. My partner is James Amato. He is podcasting at the beautiful shores of the Atlantic Ocean. How you doing today, James?
I'm doing good. We're still get this crappy weather. It's like snow or sleet, rain every other day, so it's fun. But
yeah,
being from New England, pretty much everyone can drive in this weather, and I'm seeing like what this storm did across the Midwest to places where it doesn't normally snow and get sleet, and just watching cars go sideways, and it's crazy. But baseball and spring can't get here soon enough.
Yeah, and then definitely that whole pile up in Dallas would look absolutely crazy as far as that goes.
Yeah.
You can definitely catch us on Twitter. We tweet all the time, all week, every week, every day almost. RTPOW podcast is mine, and James is JR_Amato 824. That's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all that good stuff. And don't forget to catch us on YouTube as well. 858-429-9465 is your text line. We have a couple of questions off that text line, which is nice. Thank you guys for doing that. Also, thank you for the folks who are listening in Manhattan, Los Angeles, Anchorage, Alaska, San Jose, California, Virginia Beach, and Butte, Montana. I love good old Butte, Montana. Representing every week. Let's start.
Represented well in the Beavis and Butthead movie when they take their picture in front of the "Welcome to Butt" sign. So,
welcome to Butt sign. I miss Beavis and Butthead. I did like the little bit of the Wayne's World reunion show, ad they had during the Super Bowl with Cardi B. It was nice to see Wayne's World. I was a fan of Wayne's World. Good to see him. Good to see him.
Dana Carvey's incredible. If you ever get a chance, check out on Amazon Prime the Dana Carvey show that aired for like 6 or 7 episodes back in the early 90s. Steve Carell was a member of the cast, and the guy who hosts Late Night, Stephen Colbert.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so really, really funny show. Really outrageous. Would definitely not get away with it nowadays, and they didn't get away with it back then because they just offended a lot of people.
No question about it. We'll start the show, but we're gonna preview the National League East, which is going to be a really fun, cool division as well. And we might have a guest coming on too. So stay tuned for that. First question is, we'll talk about this whole, the Red Sox usually are getting quality players. They're giving away a quality player. Andrew Benintendi goes to the Royals. The Royals are trying to win, and the Red Sox are not. That's kind of a weird, kind of situation there. Thoughts about that trade, James? That Benintendi moves to KC.
Yeah, you'd been hearing Benintendi pretty much all off season, and after Mookie, he was a huge fan favorite in Boston.
Yeah, they love him there.
They did, and they've lost 2/3 of their championship outfield from 2018, and I think it's just a matter of time before Jackie Bradley Jr. moves on.
Yeah, and I think everybody wants to see him go to the Mets. I think that's where everybody wants to see him.
I think that's a great fit for him. I think it's a great fit for the Mets. I think it just makes them even better. But yeah, it's a shame what's going on in Boston. I mean, this is the type of teardown, it's not as immediate, but we saw this from the Marlins twice. Anyone ever remember the great Padres teardown of the 90s and late 80s when they tore apart a team that was about to win? So, it's I don't want to say understandable.
Yeah, I was gonna.
team.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
when I say understandable, I'm talking about teams like the Padres. I'm talking about the Marlins.
yeah.
Boston. I mean, they've pretty much been a sellout. Or at least at 90% capacity since the 90s. You know,
Where
and
I would.
obviously last year, but
Yeah.
I can't believe no teams had money in the bank last year.
Listen, that this whole idea, this whole idea that everybody's gone broke and they need almost federal assistance to get through this moment here is kind of laughable. I mean, all these teams are sitting on, they're all sitting on cash. They're sitting on Chrome. They got plenty of cash. You some of the Red Sox are struggling right now to keep the lights on. I mean, that mandate to get rid of payroll. Sometimes you see that happen with really big market teams. I think the Dodgers had that when they had Gonzalez and all those other guys on that team. That team that looked good on paper, looked good on the video game, but didn't win any championships. And they just started, kind of scaling everything back and then started drafting well again. And when they had an opportunity to get a player like a Mookie Betts, they were able to go out there and do that. I give
and they were also transitioning from that horrible owner situation.
Yes, they had bad one.
So don't forget that when they were trying to.
That divorce was
during the divorce.
Yeah, it was horrible. That was a really bad one as far as that goes. Yeah, so we understand that part of it as well. So listen, I don't have a problem with a small market team like KC going out and trying to win it. They went to back-to-back World Series not too long ago. They lost to the Giants and then beat the Mets in a great World Series in 6 games. So that's when the Dark Knight actually was the Dark Knight, if you will. So as far as that goes, but yeah, so they were good to see them come back. Growing up, they were always in those baby blue jerseys and looking good, and they were always a pretty good team. So good to see them trying to win games. Best plays for Chris Bryant. I mean, there's a lot. I would think with the new owner in New York that he would probably push for that move. I think that would if they make that move, I would say the Mets would have to be a team that goes to the playoffs if they do that one.
Yeah, and you're just seeing the projections now, and I hate projections, but they're projecting the Mets to win 93 games without him. Is he worth another 3 or 4 games? And Justin Turner signed last night with the Dodgers.
Mm-hmm.
So, that kind of
Arenado went to the
Arenado, which is a deal I don't like. I wouldn't have traded for him. But yeah, I think Chris Bryant with the Mets is the perfect fit. Obviously the Yankees can't fit him in their payroll now that they're a small market team too. But I think there's no going back with the Cubs and Bryant, just based off his rookie year when they held him back, so they'd have the extra year out of him. And then you have to wonder what happens to Anthony Rizzo. Does Rizzo ask out? I mean, they still have, they still have the shortstop, they still have the catcher. But Bryant is just Bryant from day one has just been a horrible situation for the Cubs. He's just never been happy there, and he's a fan favorite too.
And it's because of that whole situation, right, where they held him back, right, to get the extra year.
Just to get the extra year, and I mean, and they won the World Series that year.
Yeah.
And you have to wonder what kind of carryover that has the next year. Once that player has that chip on that shoulder with that, and that's just been one of those dumb major league rules, which, I mean, I guess if you're the baseball players union, you're going to give anything to ownership. It's not a bad one to get because you get everything else.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean that one. I mean that was a tough one. I knew that was going to be bad blood for a while, and Chris Bryant is a little like me. I mean, I don't forget things like that, so I'd probably do the same thing as far as that. So 40% of minor league teams have either folded or they're not coming back, right? They're just, as far as that, they're done.
Some are done, some are
and hiatus.
Great independent leagues.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just one of the effects of COVID, and it sucks because if you've ever had the opportunity to go to minor league baseball,
oh my God, it's amazing.
There's nothing funner. One of the best minor league teams I ever saw or front of games I ever went to was the Myrtle Beach Pelicans. They're a Cubs affiliate, And that was just a fun place to go. I mean, in Myrtle Beach, in July, just the air and everything, and the smell of the beaches and whatnot. But yeah, and in Connecticut, we had the Bluefish, which was an independent team, and we have the Yard Goats, who have a nice little stadium up there in Hartford.
Yeah, so I mean, it's too bad. It's too bad because it is, especially if you have children. I think if your kids, you're taking them to baseball, I would also recommend going to a minor league game first before you go to a major league game, because that experience is phenomenal, no question about it.
Much closer to the action.
You
hear everything that's going on the field. So
it's a great experience. If you're a particular in alcoholic beverages, they're a little bit cheaper than the big ballparks as well. So, you can do that and get an Uber home if you need to. But like as far as that goes, I mean, it's just fun to watch. It's fun to watch. So, too bad that happens. Hopefully some of that comes back. I know that I really enjoyed my time going to minor league baseball games all over the country. Let's roll with the National League East preview here. We can start off with the Nats. I think what last time we had a real season, they were the champions, right? So as far as that goes, try to get some
full season world.
World champions, exactly. The full season, right? The real season. I think the first thing I want to do is I kind of want to change it up a little bit. So when you look at this team, you look at this roster, James, who's the most enjoyable player? You might have to go to the bathroom, but you'll hold it because that guy's at the plate.
Oh, geez. I mean,
on that team, for me, it's easy because it's a little bit old school, and to me, it's Trey Turner because he is flat out can just fly. Like, I love watching him on the base pads. Like, he is phenomenal on the base pads. As soon as he gets on first, I mean, it's like old school. He could steal second, without any issue. Any ball hit to the gap, it's a threat for an inside the park home run. I love that about Trey Turner. He's my most enjoyable player to watch on the Nats. Do you have a guy?
Yeah, I mean, Juan Soto is the guy for me.
All right.
I mean, just a lot of energy to the plate. That we're seeing these young players who just look like they really love playing baseball, and he's one of them, and what he did in that World Series too. Just incredible.
Yeah, no question about it. That guy is phenomenal. Most important player on this squad, I think. I kind of wanted to see Kyle Schwarber go to an American League team, just because he would have the opportunity to DH and not have to be in the field, whatever. But if he gets on track, I think this lineup is going to be, especially he's going to see a lot of good pitches between Turner. If they hit him in the second slot between Turner and Soto, that's going to be phenomenal, James. That's going to be a great situation for him.
Yeah, and they obviously they rolled the dice, hoping that you were going to get the universal DH this year, which would have put him in a better position. But yeah, I think Schwarber was, the right pickup at the right time for them.
Yeah, no question about it. And then obviously, a former Yankee and Marlin, Starlin Castro playing second base, and then it kind of rounds that out. But this team is really known for their pitching. So Scherzer, Corbin, and Strasburg, and then John Lester comes over from the Cubs. So you look at that staff, they can contend with anybody. I mean, you can say whatever you want. There's not going to be a team that's going to thoroughly outpitch them. And I think all depends on how Brad Hand kind of closes these games for him. Like, can Brad Hand handle that? Can Brad Hand handle the situation as far as closing games for him? Daniel Hudson is a really good setup guy as well. So they do have some nice options there. Will Harris is there for a setup guy on that roster. Overall theme for this team, James. Who's the guy on this team that overall with this team, who do you feel like is going to be that kind of that star that kind of supports Soto as he kind of he basically replaced Bryce Harper and then replaced him and won a championship after he left.
I did a great job.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, I'm gonna back you up with Trey Turner on that one. I just think the two of them playing off each other is that's going to carry that team. They didn't really. I mean, I'm not going to call it a World Series hangover. Last year was such an odd year, but and at the point the season ended, last year was really when they turned it on the year before. I mean, this was a team that was floundering, and it was, hey, are they going to trade off at the deadline? 2 months before the deadline, all the talk was who are they going to trade off, and they just turned it around. Beat who they're supposed to beat, and then got into playoffs, and say what you want, they beat the Astros, and it was all the road teams won all the games in that World Series, so that was interesting. So, yeah, we'll see what happens, but I wouldn't count them out this year. But this is a much different National League than it was 2 years ago.
Yeah. I would say too, one guy that I don't want to forget to mention is one of my favorite sluggers in the game, and that's Josh Bell. I mean, getting that's a sneaky little move there, getting Josh Bell. If getting a guy who is capable of hitting 37 home runs in a full season is sneaky at all. So I mean, his last full season, he had 37 home runs, 116 RBIs. I mean, the guy is really one of the best sluggers in the game. As long as he stays healthy and all that good stuff. He did that only in 143 games too. So that lineup is pretty good. This team, this division, and we're gonna find out this division is just really off the charts good, James. I guess
there's like an all-in division.
There's
everyone's in.
Even the Marlins, are in as well too. So yeah, they're really in. Let's roll over to the team who made the playoffs last year and took the Dodgers to the brink. Was the Atlanta Falcons? I'm sorry, Atlanta Braves. That'd be interesting if the Braves played the Dodgers, but the Atlanta Braves really talent all over the board. Again, they signed Ozuna back. They have, a lot of talent on this team. That whole lineup goes Acuna, Freeman, Ozuna, Darno, Albies, Swanson, Riley, and Christian Patch, who hit a home run in the playoffs last year, a young outfielder as well. So I think this team probably is, if I look at that question, who was the most enjoyable? I mean, I don't know how you get past Ronald Acuna Jr. I mean, the guy is just phenomenal. I'm more partial to the middle infielders. I love the way Ozzy Albies plays second base. He is phenomenal at second base. They have a great rapport between he and the shortstop Dasby Swanson. Team looks loaded, ready to go. Charlie Morton's on the staff now to kind of back up Max Fried. That's where I wonder if they went far enough. Like, did they go far enough to get enough starting pitching to compete with the Dodgers, to compete with the Padres in the National League, James?
Yeah, and interesting signing today with Jason Kipnis, or late last night, bringing Kipnis aboard, a veteran with playoff experience. Not that the Braves didn't really have playoff experience last year, but it was a nice little pickup for them to get. But yeah, I mean, you got to like this team, and you got to see what they're going to do with their pitching, and can they compete with, can they even compete with the Nationals when it comes to pitching? If these two teams were to square off in the playoffs, that's going to be the interesting one on that. I have Washington highlights up.
Yeah. Well, no, listen, no, we got the Braves up there. As far they listen, they are this team is talented, man. Like I mean, they are really good, and I think Ozuna coming back again. I thought that was really helpful to this team. They have some depth on the bench as well. They got a good farm system, so the Braves will be in it like they always are. Like they are there. It seems like they always are, and they'll be in it this year as well. And going forward in that division. Let's just hit on the Marlins real quick. Obviously some of these players you're not going to really know. The best player on this team that you really want to know is that's a homegrown talent will be Brian Anderson, the third baseman. Really kind of the guy who kind of pushes them in the right direction as far as that goes. But this is all about a bunch of guys you're not going to know. And you're not going to know until they go to your ballpark and take 3 out of 4 from your team. And you're going to say, oh, who's that? Who's that? Who's that? I mean, that's what the Marlins are, James. They just keep.
Well, yeah. I mean,
they keep doing that every year.
But let's see what happens when they, play more than 61 games. And we've seen.
They're going to play Schwarber well, though. They're playing that. I mean, I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you.
But you see these young teams that come out of the gate the first 2 months, and then once the summer kicks around and they're not used to playing that many games in a year, that's they tend to fade off. So the Marlins hit it all right when they needed to. And the season ended, for all those years of saying, well, if the season ended today, the season ended today.
It did.
And they were in the playoffs.
It did. Some veteran guys, they picked up Corey Dickerson, also picked up Adam Duvall as well to kind of round out that lineup down there in Florida out there. Like I said, a pesky team, not a division or wild card threat, but I do think that for teams in the division, there is an issue late in the season playing them because they do have a lot of talent, and your fans are going to wonder why you lost to them. But they do have some exciting talent, young talent on that team and in that farm system. So this is a team that has all the pressure in the free world is on this team, and I got to say, flat out, how do you even put in the words how much pressure is on the Phillies to make the playoffs? Like when you go out there, number one, it's Philadelphia. I mean, they might have more pressure than the Mets do. Like they have, it's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, obviously, and I mean the way
it's crazy how much pressure they have on this team.
And those fans are not going to be happy with all the off-season football moves that look like are going to happen. So you're gonna have some fickle fans out in Philly this year. But yeah, this is a team with a lot of pressure on them.
Yeah, I mean, going through. I mean, can they? Who knows? Like if they had a real season last year, maybe they would have made the playoffs last year. So I do like some of the core players they have on the team as far as McCutchen, Hoskins, JT Realmuto, Didi is always a good at bat. Segura playing.
I mean that was two
the lineup
re-signings.
Yes.
Gregorius.
I mean, and they were in good spots where their agents knew that, hey, these guys, this team desperately needs us back. There's pressure to win. They even got the manager in place. So, I mean, they got to really take advantage of the situation and win. Aaron Nola, the number one starter. You also have Zach Wheeler there. Zach Wheeler is Zach Wheeler going to be that guy, that guy who shuts down, down the stretch of the season, shuts down the Braves, shuts down the Mets, his former team, all those things like that. That's the biggest questions you're going to have on that squad. Oh, go ahead, say again.
They lost Arrieta yesterday, who went back to the Cubs.
Yes. So that's not. I mean, Arrieta's not great, but he does. I mean, you can't replace those innings. I mean, somebody like.
He pitches a lot of innings. He's a pitcher.
Exactly, James. Those 200 innings they won't pitch themselves. So you definitely need somebody to come in there and do that.
Pretty solid postseason pitcher at that.
Yeah. Yep. So
he wasn't someone who was intimidated by the postseason.
No, and that can also lead to good play down the stretch in September as well too. So we'll see. We'll see about that. Who's the most enjoyable player on this team to watch? I've always been a McCutcheon guy. I think he and again, he was a little older now. I think he really kind of. This team needs table setters. Are they gonna hit some home runs? You in that ballpark? Realmuto is gonna hit home runs. Harper's gonna hit home runs. Didi is gonna pull the ball, hit some home runs. He's used to doing that from his time at Yankee Stadium. But I do think they need some table setters on that team. I think McCutcheon can be that guy for him.
Yeah, I want to see Pittsburgh McCutcheon back. MVP McCutcheon, that exciting player.
I want to see Dreads McCutcheon back. Be good.
Yeah, it's I'm probably one of the few Bryce Harper fans outside of Philadelphia. I like the flair he brings to the game and everything, but there's a lot of pressure on him. The player I enjoy watching play on this team is Gregorius. I enjoyed his time in New York, and I think he's just a hell of a baseball player.
Yeah, Didi was. I mean, he's just one of those professionals who are always going to give you good at bats. We're going to play a lot of games, all those things like that. So he's always a fun guy to watch. So I definitely love watching him play.
Situation he stepped into in New York, and just putting up big numbers was
when
you think about it.
Did he replace your favorite shortstop?
Replace that guy. But I mean, you think of Tino Martinez going into New York replacing Mattingly, and it took him like a good 3 months to really get comfortable and
true.
And Gregorius from day one just came in and hit and fielded. Actually had higher fielding percentages than any year Jeter had. So, that was definitely
that's not possible. Jeter was the best fielder ever.
It's possible. It's proof.
There was that after Jeter, I guess, right? As far as that goes. Yeah. So I think the Phillies are great, really good team. Again, everybody, we talked about this before. Everybody in this division is all in, but I do think like Atlanta, and this is why I might end up favoring the Nats in this division. When we get to the end, we'll talk about who we think's going to win the division. I just don't know if they have enough pitching to get that done. Do they have enough pitching to get it done? Do they have the bullpen set up? I mean, it's all about, especially early in the season. Archie Bradley comes over from the Diamondbacks to help out a little bit, but do they have enough in that bullpen to kind of, because all the lineups in this division are all powerful.
I think they're behind. I think they're rating pitching staffs. I think they're fourth in the division.
Yeah, they can't. I mean,
they're behind Washington. I think they're behind Atlanta. I think they're behind the Mets.
They're behind everybody. They're behind everybody as far as that goes. I don't see it. The most important person on this team that they can't win without this everyday player would be.
I think it's Bryce Harper.
It gotta be, right?
It's got to be Bryce Harper.
Does he have to kind of like just be himself and just go full out, or does he have to change his game a little bit to try to get this team to play? Make sure he plays as many games as possible and get this team to the postseason, because he's really
as many games as possible. Needs to come out from day one hitting.
Set a tone, right?
Yeah, needs to set the tone early. Needs to be that Bryce Harper who won the MVP, who thrilled crowds in Washington. Just really needs to be the leader of this team. I want to say last year, but the year before, there was some testy, press conferences after the games in Philadelphia. So I think it's his year. I think, it's just interesting because all that money's there, and, probably one of the last of the 10 to 13 year contracts that we'll ever see right there.
Yeah. Have to see as far as that goes. Yeah. We're going to go over to the Metropolitans now. All right. So the Metropolitans are going to be, they're really, they their owner comes in and kind of flexes his muscle a little bit, and Sandy Alderson feels like he can actually make some moves without having to always be looking over his shoulder at the bank account to make those things. The Madoff era could be over, if you will.
Reports to file at the end of the
No more TPS reports. What are your thoughts about the Mets going? And before we go through our questions, what are your just overall thoughts? Somebody says, "Hey James, how do you think the Mets are going to do this year?"
I think it's the best division to lose. I really like what they've done. I know there's some questions with the bullpen. We talked about it a little last week. I'm just a huge Francisco Lindor fan. It's still a move that's flying under the radar. It's still, even outside of New York, I don't think the press realizes. And yes, Lindor had a down year last year, but there's just so much talent there. And if they bring in Jackie Bradley Jr. up the middle, their defense is just going to be incredible. They still have DeGrom. Syndergaard is on coming back on a contract walk year, and we know how people do on walk years in baseball. Mm-hmm. The history of walk years in baseball are incredible. I really think it's theirs to lose. And if they do bring in a Chris Bryant at third base, just forget about it. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. But yeah, it's funny because if you've seen the projections from one of the baseball stat sites, they have the Mets projected at 93 wins, and then the second place team they had at 79, which I didn't understand how they were discrediting the Braves that much. But it's the Mets division to lose.
And listen, I think the thing I like about them is just the back-to-back quality at bats you get from McNeil, Lindor, Conforto, and then followed up by just the tremendous power of Pete Alonso. Like that's how they line it up. I mean, I might even put Francisco Lindor second just to get some more bats out of it if I could. But that team looks really good. I think Lindor. You can
definitely move him up in this lineup as opposed to.
Oh, I love it
in Cleveland.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what they're gonna do in New York, but I like to bat him second just because right after Nemo, or you can lead off McNeil, however you want to do it. But I personally want to see him as high in the back of the order as possible. If you screw around and and then mess up and don't get the pitcher out, then then I want him to get up again in the second or third inning. I want him to have as many bats as humanly possible because he's such a fire starter. And the guy plays with a smile that goes from ear to ear. You have to enjoy it. You have to enjoy it. There's a video clip of Lindor online, James, where you can't even see his hands transfer as he catches it from the ball to his hand. It's that quick. The guy's a magician in the field. The Mets are going to have fun with him. Hopefully he stays healthy because sometimes when the Mets do moves like this, they get snake bit and somebody gets hurt. But the guy is just phenomenal. Hopefully he signs there and stays there a long time. I know.
He has a chance to be the most exciting player in New York this year.
Can he be? Better? Can he be what people thought Reyes was going to be? Reyes had some decent years, but I think
Reyes had some decent years, but Reyes never.
I mean, he's not this kind of player.
Potential.
He's not this kind of player, though.
Lindor's the complete package.
Yeah, funny, just beautiful to watch.
Lindor's not going to bunt to win a batting title. Let's put it that way.
Well, yeah.
Or sit out a day.
Yes, that's it. You kind of can't. You can't do that. You can't do that, James. Come on. How do you win a batting title? Come on. You gotta go out there and hit.
I think it was a bunt single, and then they pulled him from the game afterwards.
Oh my god. He better not bunt single when CC Sabathia's on the mound. He gets mad when you bunt. It's not part of the game when CC's on the mound. As I wear one of CC's shirts Oh, saying all that. Man, most enjoyable. I mean, the guy I love seeing, like, maybe because I'm a Lincecum guy and I'm a San Francisco Giant fan. Stroman just like I love him. Like I love, and he has a little attitude on top of it. Like I really enjoy watching Stroman pitch. James, when he's out there I think it was a good pickup for the Mets. He always gives you innings, everything like that. And I think Carl Carrasco is going to help the Mets as well. But who's the most enjoyable player to watch on this team?
Well, I mean, it's going to be his first year there, but it's Lindor. If you want to go with someone who's been there for the last couple of seasons, it would be Alonso. I just like his attitude on the field and in general, and the energy he brings to the game.
All right, let's run through a quick break, and then we're gonna have a guest on our show, special guest on our show, and hang on 1 second. We're back on the Put on Waivers podcast, MLB, POW MLB, if you will. Our guest is Jay Daniels. He is an author and the guy who just tweets everything beautiful about the game of baseball. Catch him on Twitter at JDaniel2033. Jay, how you doing today?
I'm great, guys. How are you?
Good. We're just going through the National League East, and this division is just loaded. Like I think James said it best when he said, everybody's in win now mode. Like it's just
absolutely. And the Mets are really going for it. I mean, new ownership now, and they've obviously gone out and spent a lot of money, and they brought in some big names. I mean, I think it's their division to lose at this point, and it should be interesting to see what happens. But boy, I tell you, the Mets. I mean, you see so many teams so often that win the offseason, and you think, oh boy, they're the team to beat. I mean, and so this year the Mets are that team. But remember, a couple of years ago, more than a couple of years ago now, I guess, the Marlins were that team, right? They went out and spent a ton of money in the offseason, and it didn't happen for them. So, but boy, the Mets, to your point, are just absolutely loaded, and they should be. If all goes well in I was about to say in Shea Stadium in Flushing, things should be fun for Mets fans this year.
That's crazy. What do you think about? I mean, obviously the impact that Lindor is going to have on this team. I mean, that guy is just. First of all, he just smiles from ear to ear, can just play the position like anybody in this league, and then also what he gives you offensively.
Yeah, I tell you, that guy, for as good as he is and as much pub as he gets, I think he's an underrated player. I mean, he really is a guy who can do just about everything that you want on the field. And then again, at that shortstop position, he can absolutely pick it. He can hit, and when you have you insert him into a lineup that's already got Alonso and Nimmo and some of these other guys in it, they're going to put up a lot of runs in New York this year. And I think that's going to be a fun team to watch regardless. I mean, again, like seemingly the Mets for years and years and years have had pitching injury problems. And if their pitching staff can stay healthy, they're going to score some runs. And it's just a question of how many runs they'll be able to prevent. And Lindor certainly is going to help that.
Yeah, I think you just rip up Lindor's contract for this year and sign him long term. Just rewrite his contract starting this year and keep him in New York. I see him being the most exciting player in New York for a while. If he gets that contract, I'm a huge Lindor fan. Prior to him coming to the Mets, anyway, loved watching him play baseball. Still do.
Yeah, he's a stud. He's the real deal, and one of the best shortstops in the league. And again, when you have a team that's in the hunt for the last couple of years, and then you add a guy like him, boy, that's a huge addition. So, I mean, it's going to be a fun season for Mets fans this year.
And he's got the winning pedigree, being in the playoffs the last few years too.
Absolutely,
yeah. So you bring that to the team also.
And maybe Jacob deGrom can get some wins. Maybe can probably get some wins in New York as far as that goes. I mean, geez, it's tough. I'm gonna roll over to the last time we played a full season. They're the full season defending champion, Washington Nationals. I talked about Trey Turner before you came on. I love watching that kid play. And when any ball on the gap, he's a threat for an inside the park home run. So much speed, enjoyable to watch. Schwarber is the guy who I feel like can really catapult this offense to if he's gonna hit bombs in that ballpark. I mean, in front of Soto and Bell and people like that. I mean, the top of that lineup could be very dangerous.
It could be. The question again with Schwarber, and this was my question as to when they signed him. I mean, where are you going to play the guy?
Yeah.
He's just a liability defensively wherever you put him. And I mean, the guy can hit. There's no doubt about that. But boy, I tell you, man, if you want to talk about a guy who was made to be a DH, I think it's Kyle Schwarber. And so I found it pretty interesting that he signed with a National League team. But good for the Nats. I mean, if they think that they can plug him in and he's gonna hit some home runs, which he obviously will, they've got some power on that team. And to your point, Trey Turner is another guy that is. Trey Turner is a player after my own heart. I mean, he's an 80s type of guy who gets on and actually one of maybe two guys left that steal bases, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, he's fun to watch, and if he can create some havoc at the top of the lineup for those boppers at the in the middle, the Nats, could be kind of a sleeper team this year. But boy, there's still a lot of talent on that team. Victor Robles coming around as well, and of course Soto is, really coming to his own. So that's another team that's going to be interesting to watch this year.
Yeah. The pitching staff. Those three guys at the top of that rotation. I mean, obviously those guys can do their best to try to match the Mets. But they are very formidable and they've done it before. So what are your thoughts about those guys?
Well, you know what? I mean, any pitching staff that's got Strasburg and Scherzer at the head, I'll take my chances with the other three guys on any day. And then, again, they go out and they added Lester, they've got Daniel Hudson, and who's he about? Yeah, Corbin. I mean, that's a team that they can make some noise, man. And again, I don't think a lot of people might not be looking for a lot from them this year, but because there's so many. I mean, you still have the Braves left in that division, and then the Phillies are still another team that you have to think that the Phillies bullpen can't be as brutal as they were last year. At least if you're a Phillies fan, you'd like to think that. So, it's as funny as it is to say a team that won the World Series 2 years ago could sneak up on some people this year. And again, when you've got Scherzer and Strasburg at the top of that rotation, anything's going. I mean, with those guys, they're both just so good. And Scherzer is the ultimate competitor as well. And so I just love watching that guy pitch.
Yeah, I mean, last season ended just when they started kicking it in the prior year too. So, they were at that 60 to 70 game mark when they kicked it in the year of the World Series. And I do believe with Schwarber, they were rolling the dice that there would be a DH in the National League this year. But I do like the signing. But I think they're like, hey, if there's a DH, we're set, which a lot of the National League teams weren't last year. But see how it plays out. It's a 1-year contract. But yeah, they could be that underrated, defending champion. And we're taking everyone took them lightly in 2019.
Yeah, absolutely.
No question about it. The Braves, again, lineup. is just, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I would not want to pitch to the National League East. I mean, Acuna Jr., you got Freddie Freeman, Ozuna just signed. Ozzy Albies is just a joy to watch play in the infield. But my question to you would be, do you have a guy? Do they have a guy after Fried who can really win a short series. I know they have Charlie Morton, but I mean, just in general, like, do you feel like they have that?
That's tough to say. I mean, I think you've got, again, it comes down to health with those guys. I mean, again, they brought Charlie Morton back, who's, that guy's just a bulldog and just gets outs, man. I mean, and Drew Smiley's another guy that could surprise some people. And if Tukey pitches well, I mean, again, they don't really have that hammer, but they've got a bunch of guys that, who knows what happens with Sean Newcomb? What if he puts it together this year? I mean, there's a lot of question marks on that Braves staff, but there are a lot of guys that have, good pedigrees and good potential. And I mean, and man, if all of a sudden, I mean, what if two of those guys or three of those guys put it together this year? Then all of a sudden you put those guys, that rotation, in front of all those guys that you mentioned. And boy, I love watching Ronald Acuna play. You want to talk?
I just can't. I love it. I mean, I'm a Giants fan, but I appreciate all the great talent, the young talent. I wish America knew how much great young talent the baseball had, but he's phenomenal. He's incredible to watch.
And I, don't sleep on Austin Riley either. That's a guy who's got another, really good pedigree who can. Boy, he can really hit the ball a ton, and maybe he gets a little bit more comfortable this year. I mean, last year's kind of a wash, with everything else that was going on. But if he gets his feet underneath him, that's a guy that could put up some numbers in Atlanta.
Yeah. You touched briefly on the Phillies before, but how much pressure is there on that team this year, and Bryce Harper in particular?
I think there's a lot of pressure on the Phillies. I think Harper's always going to have pressure regardless of, where he is and how much money he makes. And I mean, I guess that's kind of a moot point because he's pretty much set for life for the rest of his career in Philadelphia. He's going to get paid well. But, I mean, the reason the Phillies didn't succeed last year was not Bryce Harper's fault. I mean, he didn't win an MVP, but their bullpen was so bad that, I mean, it really just didn't matter what he did for the most point. Because he just couldn't, their bullpen was just brutal. And so but having said that, there's a lot of pressure on this team. There's a lot of pressure on Joe Girardi to really, to say, all right, you went out and, last year he was sort of the guy who he brought in all of his guys for the bullpen and then they didn't produce. And then they went out and got some other guys and, man, let's see what happens. I mean, again, honestly, the law of averages says that they shouldn't be as bad as they were last year, but man, you never know. I mean, there's a lot of things can go wrong with a bullpen, and we saw it last year in Philadelphia, and it was a bad year of high expectations that really fell flat.
All right, so getting out of the National League East, I want to talk to you about an incredible blog that you do, and it's one of my favorite things that you do, and that's putting together a Major League Baseball season for a player based on his best months.
Okay.
And the George Brett one was just phenomenal. When I saw you were going to George Brett, I figured you get at least 3 months out of 1980. And the fact that you only got one, and I agreed with it. I agreed with every other month that you picked. That just was a really great blog, and it's a really interesting blog. And I'm going through them now, but I remember the George Brett's 1980 baseball season like by heart, and obviously you do because with the Phillies in the World Series, but. That just talk about that and what made you want to do something like this. And if you get the chance out there, go visit Jay Daniels' Twitter, get this blog and just read about these seasons put together by the best month of a player's overall career.
Well, I appreciate it. And yeah, the website is 80sbaseball.com. And that, to be honest with you, is something that I read an article a number of years ago where someone had done that for a player. I don't remember exactly who it was. And I thought, well, that would be really fun if you just looked at, and to clarify for people who haven't really seen it, you look at it and say, okay, I'm going to take all the months that this player played and say his best April was in 1980 and his best May was 1983 and his best June and so on and so on. And then you put those all together and create sort of I call it a dream season. And And it's a lot of fun, and it actually has caused some discussions with people saying, well, why did you choose this month over that month? But it is really fun. And to your point about George Brett, I mean, yeah, I mean, when a guy hits 390, you could just say his dream season was that year, right?
I mean, it was almost the perfect year for him that year. I mean,
Yeah,
just
exactly.
everything I remember about that season with him.
And the fact that too, I mean, and there was a game in April, and I don't remember, maybe it was in May. He went 0 for 6 in a game in May and was hitting like 261. And I think after that, he hit somewhere, I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but he hit like 430 the rest of the way. So yeah, it would be easy to just pick that entire season, but it really makes it a lot of fun. I did the same thing with Ricky Henderson. I did it with Wade Boggs, I think, as well.
I read the Boggs one too. Yeah.
And then I was started to do it, and I was working on Tony Gwynn, and someone sent me a message and say, I love this idea. Would you mind if I did one for Gwynn? And I said, hey, I don't own the idea. Knock yourself out. So that guy wrote the one about Gwynn. So, but yeah, that's, I guess, it's good to see that some other people have liked that. And maybe I need to do one for some pitchers too, as well, because I think that could be a lot of fun. But yeah,
it would definitely be interesting. Yes.
It's a fun project to do. It's a fun, I mean, I'm such a stat geek that I'll sit there and I spend all day up, looking at Baseball Reference anyway. So I may as well get some productivity out of it.
Did you find that it was more I know a lot of power hitters, they say wait till the weather gets warm. Did you find that most of the big years were in the summertime?
Yeah, I mean, but again, you still have to pick a best April, and you still have to pick a best September. And you look at those numbers, and some guys are notoriously slow starters, but I think if you break down a guy's career year by year and month by month, oftentimes you're going to have one month where they were just really, really good. I mean, I'm working on my next book right now, and I actually was fortunate enough to talk to Doug DeSensei the other day. And there was a span at the beginning of August in '82 where he hit 500 for the first 2 weeks of the season, had three homer games, drove in 12 runs, or maybe more than that. I think he had 10 or 12 home runs in the first 10 or 12 games of the month. So, and I asked him about that, and he said he had a similar month in 1977, I think it was, or 78. And I went back and looked at that, and sure enough, shockingly enough, Doug DeSensei remembered correctly that he was hot that month. And so you go back and look, and there's oftentimes it's pretty rare that a guy is terrible every April, or on fire every August, so and that's where it becomes a lot of fun when you start to look at it and say, man, if he had just had this April, I mean, think about, with Brett's 1980, with that great season he had, what if he had hit 360 in April and May instead of 260?
Yeah.
All of a sudden he's going to hit 420 that year, I mean, he almost hit where he was at 400 with about 10 days to go in the season. So, think if he had gotten off to a good start, and think if he didn't. What's amazing to me about George Brett's 1980 season as well, on top of everything else, is that he tore ligaments in his ankle and missed a month. And he had just started to hit well when that happened. He missed a month, spent some time in the hospital, and all of a sudden he comes back and just picked up like it was BP again. I mean, he absolutely did not miss a beat. And if you go back and look at those splits, there was about a 10 or 12 game span right before he got hurt where he hit about 430, 440, whatever it was, misses a month. I mean, think about missing a month in the middle of the season and then coming back, and your timing is still there. Your pitch selection is still there. You haven't seen live pitching for a month, and then it's just boom, pick it up right where you left off. And I think he hit 500 in his first 2 weeks or something like that after he came back. That's amazing. I mean, it's amazing to even sit out that long, let alone to be dealing with an injury with your foot, right? Which is going to affect I don't remember now if it was his left or right ankle. So I don't remember if it was his plant foot or the one that he landed on. But either way, that's going to affect you, and for him to do that was really phenomenal. I mean, he was just absolutely unconscious that season.
And anyone unfamiliar with Doug DeSensei, he was kind of an unheralded third baseman in the 70s and 80s. And we mentioned Gregorius taking over for Jeter before. DeCinces took over for Brooks Robinson. You
Yeah.
know, so that, you know, you talk
No
about
pressure there. No pressure there at all.
no pressure at
Jeez.
all. He was a solid third baseman, and he continued to haunt the Yankees, you know, when he got traded to the Angels. But yeah, just I guess if you want to compare it to another sport, he was, you know, Patrick Ewing to Michael Jordan. You know, just there was just always at least one or two better third basemen who got all the attention over him. But he just had a very solid Major League Baseball career.
Yeah.
And, you know, he's an Oriole great, and he was traded because of a guy named Cal Ripken.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and they traded Doug to make room for Ripken. Although what Doug told me was that the other part of that was that he was the one of the AL player reps for the strike, and of the player reps and the assistant player reps, there were 4 of them, 2 in each league, and 3 of the 4 got traded the following season. Steve Rogers was the only one who stayed where he was. And as Doug told me, well, that's because he was Cy Young. I mean, Steve Rogers was at the height
Way to would have looked
at the time.
You know, collusion early on that one.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to trade, you know, you're not going to trade Rogers, but it's, you know, it made it easy for the Orioles to trade DeCinces, and certainly the fact that Ripken is coming up is obviously a factor. But Doug told me that actually right before, or I think it was right after he got traded, Earl Weaver called him and they talked for more than 2 hours. He said, I played for the man for 9 years and he didn't talk to me for 2 hours during that entire time. And so they had a long discussion about how things went down. So it was pretty interesting conversation.
That's interesting.
Yes, definitely sounds like it.
One thing. So you like the Mets to win the NL East?
Yeah, I think they have to be the odds-on favorite at this point.
Okay, and I agree. I agree with that point as well. One last question is, I'm sure you've been to a bunch of baseball games in a lot of time and been to a lot of minor league ballparks. It's just a really enjoyable experience. Going to those games with I think they're down 40% as far as like operations and everything like that. What Major League Baseball did last year. What are your thoughts about, you know, that being, you know, that decision by Major League Baseball and, you know, what's and the future of kind of those minor league ballparks?
I understand why they're doing it, but I hate it.
Yeah.
I absolutely hate it. I mean, I think, boy, minor league ballparks are so much fun. Minor league games are so much fun, and it's affordable. It's a gateway to the big leagues, both obviously for the players, but also for the umpires, for the fans. And you know, a lot of those teams, especially those low minor league teams, are in smaller towns where that's kind of, you know, one of the big things that's going in that town. And for them to just pull the plug on all those, I mean, I absolutely hate the decision. And then, you know, and then there's all the things where, you know, there's the affiliate switching. I mean, I spent a couple of years as the official scorer for the Clearwater Phillies, and they were in the Florida State League, which was high A ball. And now they're short season A ball. And they're and they've since changed their name. They're now the Clearwater Threshers. But, you know, it's just the juggling that takes place, or that took place with all of this and rearranging things. And I mean, yeah, for me now, as someone who lives in Indianapolis, I'll get to see some teams and some players that I haven't seen for a long time because of the way that they've reorganized AAA. So that, you know, that's kind of fun. And it's always to see, when you're in a AAA city, it's interesting to go see guys who are one step away, and see them play. I saw David Price pitch for the Durham Bulls right before he got called up in 2008, when he came to town with Durham. And you know, you get to see some of these guys that are one step away, but it's also kind of cool to be able to say, hey, I saw so-and-so play A ball, you know, and those opportunities now have been lessened because of this decision. And again, like everything else with baseball, it's all about money. And I understand that from the economic standpoint, but boy, you're ripping the heart out of some of these smaller towns. And I just hate it. I absolutely hate it.
Yeah. I mean, I love going. Go ahead, James. So.
I'm sorry. When I was a kid, we had AAA, the West Haven Yankees, and the New Britain Red Sox. So,
yeah.
You know, you're talking about some great games to go to when you're a kid and see that. And on top of that, we had the Waterbury Giants. So the Giants had the minor league team from the 50s still carried over in Waterbury, Connecticut, which was incredible up to that point in the 70s. So,
yeah, my wife and I got engaged at a minor league ballpark.
Oh, there you go. There you go. There you go. That's nice. I like that. There you go. I see a lot of those. Whenever I go, somebody else getting married. So that's good to know. That's good to know you got married there as well.
Let's go with I started the trend. Let's go with that.
Let's see how you started that. Let's go with that. Yes, Jay Daniels is like as a baseball author. You can see you can catch him out on Twitter at JDaniel2033, and then you also can see his work on 80sbaseball.com. It's a lot of really good stuff here. Thank you for joining us here on the Put on Waivers podcast, man. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it. Well, let's do it again.
No problem. Definitely. No problem.
Take care, gentlemen. Have a good night.
Yep. All right, Jay Daniels here on the Put on Waivers podcast. Really quick, we're wrapping up now. WandaVision. I'm sure. I mean, it's good. No question about it. I do. I think the scene where he's trying to leave, I think that was kind of like, my niece who I was watching it with was very emotional because she didn't want to see Vision go bye again. But it's really his curiosity of like where he is and him like going to the. I forgot the name of the street, but remember she said something about don't go to the street or whatever.
Ellis Road.
Don't go past Ellis Road.
Ellis Road.
Yeah, so she's powerful and she's trying to keep that world together, James.
Yeah, I mean, of the last three, it was probably not my favorite episode, but it was good to say the least. That the other two are powerful. We were talking about it at work, and we thought it's like the crossover episode, so everything just takes off from this one. This was the reeling it back just a little, but not too much.
Mm-hmm.
Leaving you a lot of questions, and I think the next three episodes are just gonna just blow your mind away. Like,
yeah,
I can't wait to see him. And what I've been doing too is, I've since this has been out, I've watched Captain Marvel a couple times. I've watched Ultron, just trying to pick up on some stuff here and there, and obviously all the great websites with their feedback and what they're seeing and the Easter eggs. The whole Pietro/Peter. Who is he really? That's going to come out eventually. But yeah, it was. Again,
he's spying for right now, though. He's spying for right now. He's asking too many. He's asking too many questions. And she was like, "My favorite part of it was when she asked him, 'You don't think what I'm doing here is wrong?'" Like I was like, that's when you knew immediately that it was because he's kidnapping the whole damn town. Like it's not like
that's what you're to believe.
That's what we think. So we'll see. What's going on.
Her,
somebody controlling her.
Who Monica Rambeau's friend is. I think it's going to end up being Reed Richards.
Yeah, we'll see. I think it's been good, and I think don't they pick up right when this ends? They pick up with Falcon and
There's a 2-week break.
2-week break. Okay.
2-week break, and then you have the Falcon and the Snowman. Not Falcon and the Snowman's a movie from the '80s with Timothy Hutton and Sean Penn. I keep saying Falcon and the Snowman. Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
It was a soldier. Yes. Yeah. So it really
that's gonna be that. I'm intrigued by that too. I want to see how they all tie together. One thing I did notice is that one of the people who makes a real quick cameo is also in the the Black Widow movie. So
okay.
I think Disney has to release the Black Widow movie. I don't think it can wait till May.
They're really trying to hold off for theaters, aren't they?
They're really trying to see what's going on with theaters. I had a friend who went to a theater yesterday. She said there was like 10 people there. 6 of them were in her group. It was just, you have to keep your mask on unless you're eating or drinking. And I guess it's like every other seat and whatnot. But
I mean, if they could,
it's intriguing. I don't know if I'd go see it at a theater. I love Marvel movies, but if it's important to everything, I may have to take the chance and go see Black Widow in the theater, but I think there might be a tie-in with Black Widow and Falcon and the Winter Soldier that they may need to release that movie.
Yeah, I know they're holding on for dear life, and I know Phase 4 is on pause. They really want to do it in the theater because it is a great. I mean, it's a great theater experience. I mean, it's like when you're a little boy and you go to the movies, like this is or a little girl. This is movies like this is the reason why you go. Like so I understand what they're doing. I understand.
Spider-Man's being filmed in Georgia. Thor's being filmed in Australia. I know all the Guardian actors just wrapped up their time in Australia because they're going to be part of the Thor movie.
Yeah.
To hold over till the Guardians comes out. So
have you
everything else is kind of on pace to come out, but the Black Widow one is the interesting one. I think at this point just release it on Disney Plus. Maybe steal that Justice League Thunder and release Black Widow a week before that.
Yeah. Real quick, you mentioned that the movie was being filmed in Georgia. Did you see? You ever see Tyler Perry's set up in Georgia?
No, I haven't.
So go to YouTube and see it because I know you're in the movies. Like he has basically almost an entire town where almost every movie that you see in Georgia is being when it's that little Georgia Peach at the end of the movie, at the end of the film.
Oh, that's him.
That's him. He has so much, dude. It's a city. It's a city. He has every kind of scene you want. He has it, and it's amazing. It's really
that Medea money must be something.
That Medea paper is no joke, man. It's no joke. But he runs that thing down there really not crazy. All right, put away this podcast. MLB, POW MLB. I have confirmed that we do have. They're done. They're made. Apparel is here. We will have the sweatshirts. We have sweatshirts. We have stickers. All that good stuff. So you'll see those on. You'll see we'll be wearing those every once in a while. And also, you have the opportunity to see it on Twitter, on Instagram, all that stuff like that. So you could definitely pick those up as well. So I know people have been asking about it, but they came. They came. I haven't seen the physical ones yet. They're in the mail, but the pictures, they look really good. So we'll be fine. We'll have fun with that as well. All right, James. Take care, man.
Take it easy. Peace.
Yeah.